Hey everyone, it's Dr. Hayes, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the plagiarism accusations that Laura J. Roberts is facing, although in my head I keep saying Laura J. Roberts. So apologies if I get their name wrong during this video. And I actually stumbled across the situation on Reddit first, not TikTok, although I have seen it on TikTok since, and it was on the r/romance books Reddit. So someone said, thoughts on the whole drama involving Laura J. Roberts copying word for word R.J. Lewis novel Obsessed. I haven't read either, but before the news broke out I added Beverly to my TBR. Also it seems suspicious considering Beverly is her second novel. Not too sure what's going on there, but would love to hear your thoughts since it's all over my FYP. So when I saw this I obviously had to look into more. So there are two authors that we need to know that are involved in this situation. So first of all we have Laura J. Roberts, who is an author who seems to have published two books. We have A Tale of Love and Curses and Beverly, which is a novel at the centre of this situation. The other novel doesn't seem to have anything to do with this. And then there is also R.J. Lewis, and on their Goodreads they've written quite a number of novels, including the novel Obsessed, which is also in the middle of this situation. So basically Laura J. Roberts, an indie author, on the 15th of May this year self-published their novel Beverly. Here is a screenshot of the blurb from Amazon. I'm not going to read it out to you, but basically it's a romance between a girl and her foster/adopted brother in the 1990s in California. At first, if you look at the reviews, it does seem like people were enjoying the book, has plenty of good reviews on both Amazon and Goodreads. So for example, 6 heartbreakingly beautiful stars. Oh, I want to give this infinity stars. One of the new all-time favourite contemporary romance books, one of my favourite reads of the year. This is everything I want out of a romance novel. Perfection. I'm honestly speechless. The amount of emotions that's instilled in me, I will never ever ever stop thinking about this story and these characters. It's permanently etched into my heart and soul. So that sounds like an absolutely excellent review. Sounds amazing. However, there are also some not so great reviews on both Goodreads and Amazon saying the book has been plagiarised. Plagiarised. She stole R.J. Lewis's book, Obsessed, and is repackaging it as her own book. Do not support this author. She literally stole this entire book/plot/trope word for word from Obsessed by R.J. Lewis. So Obsessed, which is by R.J. Lewis, was published on the 2nd of January 2016, so quite a while ago. So just remember, Beverly was published this year, literally 2 months ago. This other book, Obsessed, came out in 2016, so quite a while ago now. It was a romance between a girl and her foster/adopted brother. The same thing. The books have the same base premise. Now, I'm not saying books can't have a similar base premise or anything like that. I'm not saying that's outright plagiarism, especially when it comes to romance books, because a lot of people, myself included, read these kinds of books and they read similar ones because they like the same sort of trope, they like the same sort of setup. For example, when it comes to these sort of books for me, I am a sucker for a mafia romance or like a gang romance. I expect the base premise of these books to be pretty similar. For example, one of my favourite romance series of all time is the Shadows of Obsessions books by I.A. Dye. So 4 out at the minute, the 5th one's about to come out later this year. I'm very excited for it. But they are basically pretty much all the same. They start with the same base premise, but they all end up being different. So basically the first 2 are about Haley and her love interest Carter, and then the next ones are about a different gang member and their love interest. And it basically all starts where the guy has to do something to make the girl feel safe. He has to save her in some way to protect her. And then the girls all have different circumstances, different views on things, and the relationship looks different depending on the girl's personality and the guy's personality. So they all basically have the same base premise, these books. We have a man who is in a gang, and he has to protect a girl who is usually fairly ordinary. They have no affiliation to the underworld, the gang world or whatever, and they end up falling in love. But it is slightly different each time. And I will read it for the rest of my life. I love them so much. If you have any good mafia romances or gang romances, please recommend them to me. I absolutely love them. So while a lot of people, I think, do expect some romance books to have a similar premise, they would expect the execution and actual details, like the actual writing itself, is going to be different. Like I can already think of another book that does have a very similar premise to this one. However, as you may have guessed from this video, it's not just the premise that's the same, it's some of the writing inside of both of these books. So these screenshots on the screen are from Nia O'Vale. I'll link their TikTok down below, but here is what they noticed. So on the left in black are screenshots from Obsessed, and then on the right in white are screenshots from Beverly. So we're just going to read this massive paragraph here. You can see the smaller ones, but from Obsessed it says, there are children who don't have parents to put them to bed or even to say goodnight to. They don't have a lot of food to eat. They go to sleep hungry and scared. They're abandoned, Elise, and they feel pain every minute of every day. Nobody looks at them. Nobody pays them attention. They live in our world and they feel like nobody cares. Do you think that's right? And then in Beverly, there are children Beverly who don't have parents to put them to bed, who don't have someone to kiss them goodnight or tell them they're safe, who don't have food to eat. They go to bed hungry, scared and alone. They don't have anyone who cares for them. No one looks at them. No one notices their pain. There's a lot more, so for example in Obsessed, I have to go, I cut Cindy off, we have to talk about kissing Jacob. I hung up on her and stared wide-eyed and confused as Dad opened the door and stepped in. Then in Beverly, I have to go, I told Tiffany, cutting her off mid-sentence. But we have to talk about Cal. I hung up and stared as my father kept the door open long enough for the boy to hesitate. Then from Obsessed we have I want you to meet Aston. Then from Beverly, I want you to meet Blake. From Obsessed, I never seen my daddy cry. From Beverly, I had never seen him cry. Again from Obsessed, he was sleeping in a pillowcase to get warm. They just left him there for days, on the concrete floor with the cockroaches. And then from Beverly, he was sleeping in a pillowcase, trying to get warm. Can you imagine that? A damn pillowcase. For days he was left there on the concrete floor, surrounded by cockroaches. So as you can see from those examples I just read out, it is almost word for word the exact same. Beverly is almost the exact same as Obsessed. Of course it is slightly different here and there, but to me it is just so close, so unbelievably close. So what I did this morning when I was in bed, I was like, you know what, let me just get on my Kindle and I will download samples of the two books for free. You can do that for free. So I downloaded the samples of them both. I read the opening of Beverly and then I read the opening of Obsessed. So for Beverly, I read the first 3 chapters. So in the first chapter, I think it's a bit like a prologue that's set like in the future or whatever, and it's basically the male lead has been going out with this girl, but his heart's not really in the relationship. He finds out that his girlfriend has slept with someone else and he's like, okay, and it's because he's in love with Beverly, so he's just like, whatever. And then the next 2 chapters go back to their childhood when they first met, when Beverly's dad first brought home this boy and how their relationship progresses. Then I read Obsessed. So Obsessed starts immediately with the main character as a young girl and her dad brings home a boy. So it doesn't have that opening bit in Beverly, but it has the exact same. It is literally the exact same. So in Obsessed, the main character, I think she's called Elise, I've already forgotten, I've got all the characters mixed up because they're all the same. She is sat at home playing with her dolls and her dad would come in from work and they have a great relationship and her dad always puts her to bed and stuff like that. And then one day he brings home this boy and this boy is kind of really slim and skinny because he's been neglected. His dad had murdered his mum and sisters. He'd been put in the foster care system after that, and then the main character's dad found him and brought him home. They all eat dinner that night, however he really struggles to use a fork because he's not used to it, so they let him just eat with his hands. And then that night the boy has lots of nightmares and the main character's dad goes into like the guest room or whatever to help him through it and calm him down. And in Beverly, almost the exact same things happen. So she's at home waiting for her dad to come home, who is a police officer. He arrives with this boy. The only difference is that, so in Obsessed the main character is 9, in Beverly the main character is actually 11. But again, they eat with their hands and stuff. Yeah, it's just, it was the same. The only difference really was their ages, their names, and also in Beverly it's the dad of the boy. The dad kills his mum and just one sister. So in Obsessed the dad kills the mum and the 2 younger sisters. In Beverly he kills the mum and just one younger sister. So like I said, there are slight differences, but when I was reading this morning I was just like, I have read the same thing twice. I have not read, full transparency, I have not read the full novel of either one of these, but just from the opening alone I basically read the same thing with character names changed and some ages and other details changed, but it was basically the same thing. So I have to say allegedly, but I do believe that Obsessed was allegedly plagiarized for Beverly, basically. So yeah. I know a lot of people could argue that nothing is original, certainly not word order, like the way some words are just like a normal sentence and you can't really do much to change it. For example, just like set things, saying like, oh, I closed the door. Like if you also use that in a novel and it was in other people's novels, I don't think anyone would accuse you of plagiarism for that. But for the books to have the same base plot and then to have literally some of the same lines, and like I said, I read the opening of both novels. It literally felt like I was reading the same thing twice. And they did have a lot of the same lines. It honestly is a bit much for me to pass it off as a coincidence, since most of the changes were basically just character name changes. However, saying that about character name changes, apparently not all the names have changed because the dads in both books, in Obsessed and Beverly, have the exact same names.
But no, I just got about 10% in to Obsessed. The fucking dad's name is the same in both books. Like, not only did you copy the entire fucking story, you copied the names.
Like, if this was me, not that I would ever do this, but let's just say I would have at least changed the dad's name. You know what I mean? And there is also, and while I do personally believe that Obsessed was allegedly plagiarized in order for Beverly to exist, there is also a lot of people saying that Laura J. Robert isn't a real person, or that she is basically trying to be RJ Lewis, because RJ Lewis, their initials are RJL and Laura's are LJR, so backwards. I'm personally not sure on that one. I think it's a coincidence, a very unfortunate coincidence, but I don't particularly think that the names are part of this. I do genuinely feel like those are their actual names, or at least their actual pen names. I think that might have just been a very unfortunate coincidence. So let's get into the author responses. So RJ Lewis, the author of Obsessed, the work that was allegedly stolen, posted this to their Instagram. Stolen work alert. It has been brought to my attention that Beverly by Laura J. Roberts was stolen from my book Obsessed. My team and I have been painstakingly reviewing the original copy of Roberts' book, and the similarities/plagiarism cannot be ignored straight from the very start. It is actually sickening and has left me shocked and saddened. I'm an author who does not have a big online presence, and thank all who have reached out to bring this to my attention, as I don't have much visibility on social media. I have contacted Amazon to raise a copyright infringement case and hope that people in the BookTok space realise this author is stealing content and profiting from it. Please help spread the word that this author does not deserve the recognition she is getting over stolen work. In my opinion, that seems like a fairly reasonable response. If this was me, I would also be trying to sort something out with copyright or whatever. I think it's a fairly sound response. However, Laura also responded. Beverly is online and available on Amazon. It's my book, my heart in those pages. We live on a time where it's incredibly easy to manipulate things online and get people to run with it. No matter what people say or what kind of screenshots/slideshows they throw around to try and make me look bad, I know the truth. I know the sleepless nights and the heart I poured into these characters and their story. I know what I did. More importantly, I know what I didn't do, and that's what matters to me. Let's address the rumour that's been going around. The bizarre idea that I copied someone's name. Laura J. Robert is my real name. It's not a pen name, it's not a play on someone else's identity. Yes, my initials happen to be the reverse of hers, but that's where it ends. People are claiming I copied her entire name, and to that I ask, are we serious? Her name has no connection to mine beyond reversed initials. That's not even a conversation worth having. Names are not owned, they're not exclusive. This kind of accusation is nothing more than a desperate attempt to discredit me. Let me also say this clearly. Deactivating my social media accounts is not an admission of guilt. It's called self-protection. When you're being bombarded with hateful, threatening and dehumanizing messages, stepping away is about protecting your peace. My mental health will always come first. I don't owe 24/7 access to myself to people who are only showing up to attack and degrade me. I don't have to stay online to prove anything to people who've already decided what they want to believe. Just for the record, her book was temporarily taken offline. It's back now, but the brief disappearance wasn't explained. She also had an AI-narrated audiobook version that is no longer available. It's worth keeping in mind. I stand by Beverly. My characters are mine. I know the work I put in. I know who I am. I'm incredibly proud of this book, and I'm even more excited about what's coming next. I can't wait to share Jamal and Tiffany's story. I'll pour everything I have into them. I will continue to tell the stories that live in my heart. That's something no amount of noise or false claims can take away from me. To those who have stood by me and read Beverly with open hearts, thank you. I'm not going to stop writing. So like I said before, the name change thing, I do think that's just an unfortunate coincidence. I really don't think that's an issue, just coincidence. Unfortunate, but it happens, people have similar names. I just think that's a coincidence. However, having read the opening of both books, I just unfortunately can't get behind Laura and his statement. However, in Laura's statement it does say that the book, I'm assuming Obsessed, doesn't actually say the name of the book, was temporarily taken offline. I'm not really sure how that helps Laura's claims here. I'm not really sure what she's trying to get at here. And whilst I agree having an AI narrated audiobook version of the book isn't a good thing, that's not the issue at hand here. Personally, I am against AI in all the forms it comes in, but I'm just like, that's not the issue at hand here. The issue is about you allegedly having plagiarized someone else's book, not AI at the minute. So it just seems like a bit of a weird thing to bring up to try and like take the heat off plagiarism and move it over to AI usage. Both are wrong, but the issue at hand here is the plagiarism, not the AI. I know Laura is saying that she didn't do this, and if it was only like a few things here and there, I'd be like, okay, I could see how people think it's similar. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt and say it's not copied. But right now, after having read the openings myself, I am really struggling to see how Obsessed wasn't allegedly copied, how it wasn't plagiarized for Beverly. So I have only read the openings, but I'm just like, even if they both end up being different, like the opening at the very least was definitely allegedly copied. So I'm just a bit like, so yeah, I'd love to know what happens next. If I'm not really sure how copyright claims work with Amazon. Like, I know they work pretty easily on YouTube, but with this I would assume it's something quite different since it's a book. So I've never heard of this happening before, so I'm going to be super interested to find out what happens next. And of course, if there is any more news, I will update you, because this has been an extremely interesting situation. But anyway, of course, I'd love to know what you think of this. If you have read either of these books or just the samples, the opening of them like I have, I'd love to know what you think, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!